The merchant of Onitsha. Onitsha main market never slept. From the first crow of the rooster until late into the night, voices rose like the buzzing of countless bees. Traders called out prices, bargaining with hands as much as with tongues. The scent of roasted corn and hot akara floated in the air, mixing with the pungent smell of leather, palm oil, and ground spices. The market was a living river, flowing with people, stories, and dreams. In the very heart of that river stood Odogwu, a man whose name rang like the beat of a talking drum across Onitsha. His stalls overflowed with imported fabrics, radios, enamel plates, and motor spare parts. Apprentices, boys brought from villages across Anambra, scurried at his command, carrying loads, attending to customers, and learning the trade. People respected Odogwu, but they also envied him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with the pride of one who believed that money alone commanded honor. Among his many apprentices was Chike, the oldest. Chike was not loud, neither did he waste words. His loyalty was firm, and his diligence made him a pillar in Odogwu's business. Yet even in his silence, he watched and learned. He saw how his master, despite his success, wasted his strength on pleasures that bore no fruit. At night, when the stalls were closed and lanterns dimmed, Odogwu often wandered to bars along Upper Iweka. There, women gathered around him, clapping at his jokes, praising his deep pockets, and drinking the liquor he paid for. To the world, he was enjoying life. But to the eyes of the wise, he was scattering seeds on barren land. In contrast was Amarachi, the young woman who loved him deeply. Amarachi was a university student, decent and reserved. Her beauty was quiet, it shone in her kindness, in the way she smiled gently, in her soft eyes filled with dreams of tomorrow. She ignored the market gossip about Odogwu's reckless living. Each time she returned from school, she visited his shop, carrying food she had cooked, asking about his apprentices, and listening with patience. Her love was steadfast, and her hope for marriage with Odogwu was strong. She believed in him even when he did not believe in himself. Chike noticed. He watched Amarachi's devotion and shook his head in silence. Respect kept him from speaking against his master, but his heart was troubled. Sometimes, in the evenings, as he taught the younger boys how to count money or arrange goods, he would whisper a proverb, hoping they would understand. A man with 10 yams in his barn who refuses to plant one will meet hunger tomorrow. The boys would nod, though their young minds only half grasped his meaning. But Chike knew the truth. Odogwu had wealth in his hands and love at his door, yet pride and recklessness blinded him from planting what could grow into a future. And so the story of the merchant of Onitsha began, where wealth wrestled with wisdom, and destiny waited for the one who would value it. Amarachi's descent path. At Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Amarachi shone like a calm river in the midst of restless waves. She lived in the women's hostel, a place that echoed with laughter, gossip, and the shuffle of slippers in narrow corridors. Many of the girls around her enjoyed the glitter of campus life, weekend parties in Oka, late-night outings, and rich men who visited with cars and promises. But Amarachi walked a different path. She kept her corner neat, her books well arranged, her Bible by her bedside. Her friends admired her beauty, but they often wondered why she lived so quietly. Whenever the chatter about men rose high in the evenings, Amarachi would sit by her table, trading colorful beads, her mind far away in Onitsha. One evening, her closest friend Ifeoma leaned against the bunk bed and laughed. "Amora, are you blind? Your man is in Onitsha enjoying himself like a butterfly, flying from flower to flower. Don't you hear stories of how he spends money on women?" Amarachi smiled faintly, though her heart trembled. "I know what I have seen in him," she replied softly. "A man may wander, but he returns home at last. He may dance around the flowers, but in the end, he will seek the one who knows how to cook yam porridge with palm oil the way he likes." The room burst into laughter. Ifeoma shook her head. "You and this your fate will end in tears." Open your eyes before it is too late. But Amarachi's hope was like a stubborn flame. She pressed her lips together, hiding the shadow of doubt that sometimes clouded her eyes. To her, Odogwu was not just a man in the market, he was the future she had already pictured. While her friends went out dressed in borrowed perfumes and borrowed dreams, Amarachi stayed behind. She sold handmade bead necklaces to support her school fees, waking early to catch buyers at the school gate before lectures began. Many nights, she bent over candlelight, finishing assignments and whispering prayers. Odogwu's chats came to her phone, but they were short, careless words sent without thought. "How are you? Take care." Sometimes days passed without a single message. Amarachi, however, wrote back long letters, full of love, full of dreams, full of loyalty. She told him about her classes, her exams, her struggles. She told him how she prayed for him. Far away in Onitsha, Odogwu lived another life. He poured money like water, buying drinks for friends who hailed him as Odogwu Nwok. Women gathered around his table, laughing at his jokes and enjoying his recklessness. To him, life was sweet palm wine meant to be poured generously, not stored for tomorrow. But Amarachi did not see those nights. She saw only the man she had chosen. She held on to the belief that love, like a kola nut, may taste bitter at first but ends with sweetness if chewed with patience. And so, in her small corner of the university, Amarachi lived decently, waiting for the day her degree and her love would join hands, not knowing that fate was already writing another story. The shattered dream. Graduation day came like the breaking of a new dawn. At Nnamdi Azikiwe University, drums beat, songs rose, and families danced in thanksgiving. Amarachi's parents clapped their hands until they stung with joy. Her mother ululated as she tied her wrapper tighter, praising God for her daughter's success. Amarachi wore her gown proudly, her face glowing as she clutched her certificate to her chest like a sacred treasure. To her, this was more than a certificate. It was the key to a new life. She whispered in her heart, "Now Odogwu will fulfill his promise. Now my waiting will not be in vain." As soon as the celebrations ended, Amarachi's heart carried her to Onitsha. Every bump on the road seemed to sing of her dreams. She pictured Odogwu lifting her into his arms, calling her Nwoni Oma, his good woman. She imagined the wedding, the breaking of kola nuts, the songs of women, the blessings of elders. With each thought, her heart beat faster. But fate, like a mischievous trickster, sometimes shatters clay pots just as they are lifted from the fire. When Amarachi arrived at Odogwu's shop, she paused at the doorway. Laughter rolled out, thick and careless. Odogwu sat with a friend, his voice loud, his chest heaving with pride. "My brother," Odogwu said, slapping his thigh, "marriage is not in my plans now. Women are everywhere. Let them enjoy me as I am. I am not ready to tie myself down." The friend raised his brows. "But Amarachi is a good girl. Will you throw her away like yesterday's wrapper?" Odogwu roared with laughter. "Good girls can wait. I have no time for chains now. A man who ties himself early loses his freedom. Let me enjoy the world first." Amarachi's knees weakened. Her vision blurred as tears rose unbidden. Her heart, which had flown like a bird toward joy, crashed like a pot against the ground. She turned quietly, her certificate pressed against her chest, as though to shield herself from the words that cut deeper than knives. Inside, Odogwu's friend frowned, shaking his head. "Odogwu," he cautioned, "a good woman is a crown upon a man's head. He who rejects a crown may wear shame instead. Do not throw away this jewel." But Odogwu only laughed louder, pouring another glass of palm wine as though life would always remain in his grasp. Unknown to him, someone else had heard everything. Chike, the faithful apprentice, was stacking goods nearby. His hands froze, and his chest tightened. It was not only Amarachi's pain that stung him, it was the blindness of his master, who could not see that fortune had already knocked at his door. Chike lowered his head and whispered to himself. When a man covers his eyes to avoid the sun, he will still stumble in the darkness. And so Amarachi walked away, her dreams falling like broken pieces of pottery, while Chike's heart stirred with a fire he dared not name. 3 months passed like slow-moving clouds. In those months, Amarachi lived in silence. Her once bright laughter grew faint, her once radiant face dimmed. At night, her pillow drank her tears. Neighbors whispered that her heartbreak had turned to sickness. Mothers in the compound would shake their heads, murmuring, "Noni no hinonya buru ibu, mo o buru no imi ya gogo, obi no boji." When a woman loves deeply and is betrayed, her heart breaks like a calabash dropped on stone. Her family urged her to move on. Her father warned her sternly, "A bird does not perch forever on a tree that bends toward the ground." Her mother pleaded, "My daughter, wipe your eyes. Your beauty is not meant for tears. The river that rejects a stone will carry another." But Amarachi's heart clung stubbornly to its pain, and many nights, she prayed for strength that seemed far away. In Onitsha, Chike too wrestled with his spirit. Loyalty chained him to Odogwu, yet love pulled his heart toward Amarachi. He remembered how she would greet him kindly in the shop, how she encouraged the apprentices, how her smile carried peace. He could no longer watch silently as the woman's worth was trampled under his master's pride. At last, one evening, Chike gathered his courage and journeyed to Oka. His steps were heavy, yet his resolve firm. He carried no riches, only honesty in his heart. Standing at Amarachi's family compound, he bowed low before her father, cap in hand. "Sir," he began, voice trembling, "forgive my boldness. I have come to see Amarachi." The man's brows tightened. "Are you not Odogwu's boy? What business do you have here? Do you bring more pain to my daughter?" Chike knelt respectfully. "I come not to harm but to heal. Please, allow me to speak." Amarachi appeared at the doorway, her wrapper tied loosely, her face pale from sleepless nights. She gasped when she saw Chike kneeling. "Chike, what are you doing here?" He bowed his head, but his voice was steady, like a man carried by truth. "Amarachi, for years, I have served Odogwu with my hands. But in silence, my heart has served you. He does not see your value, but I do. Give me a chance, and I will build, not waste. I will honor, not discard. Amarachi, let me be the man who treasures you." The courtyard grew still. Amarachi's breath caught in her throat. "Chike, you are his boy. Do you know the shame it will bring? The tongues that will wag? People will laugh." Chike lifted his eyes, courage shining through. "The servant who treasures you is worth more than the master who wastes you. Amarachi, a man is not defined by who he served yesterday, but by what he builds tomorrow. Give me a chance, and I will honor you as my queen." Amarachi's heart trembled. She saw no gold chains, no flamboyance, only truth in his eyes. In that moment, a seed was planted, the courage of a servant daring to love boldly. Love triumphs. At first, Amarachi's family resisted with the fire of wounded pride. Her mother wept openly, beating her chest as neighbors gathered to console her. "Amarachi," she cried, "will you shame us before the whole town? Among all the suitors in this world, you choose a servant. Have we labored all these years only for you to bring us disgrace?" Her father's voice thundered like rolling drums. "Tufiokwa. No daughter of mine will marry a boy who once bowed to another man. Marriage is not a game. Do you want our kinsmen to laugh, saying our daughter left a wealthy merchant only to wed his boy?" But Chike's heart did not waver. Day after day, he returned. Not with empty words, but with quiet actions. He fetched water for Amarachi's mother, split firewood for her father, and helped younger siblings with their homework. From his small savings, he bought foodstuffs and simple gifts. When Amarachi fell ill for a week, it was Chike who brought herbs from the market, who cooked pepper soup in the kitchen, who prayed softly at her bedside when the nights were long. His persistence was not of noise but of presence, and the family began to watch him differently. Amarachi's heart, too, softened. She remembered the years in Odogwu's shop when Chike had always greeted her with respect, never mocking, never careless. She remembered how he shielded younger apprentices when Odogwu's anger burned. She saw in him a man who, though poor, had a wealth of character. One evening, she whispered to herself, a man's true riches are not counted in naira, but in sacrifice. Her eyes shone with new certainty. In time, her decision was made. Yes, she told him, her voice firm. I will marry you. When the families finally agreed, preparations began. On the appointed day, Amarachi's family compound burst alive with color. Women tied bright wrappers, beads glistened, and the air carried the smell of jollof rice, nkobi, and palm wine. Drummers beat their talking drums, calling out the names of ancestors, while young girls danced with calabashes in hand. The time came for the traditional rite. Amarachi, clad in a wrapper of red and gold, coral beads heavy on her neck, carried a gourd of palm wine. Her steps were graceful, her eyes lowered in modesty. She walked among the seated men, searching. The crowd teased, pointing at others, but her heart knew where to go. At last, she found Chike, seated humbly in the corner, his face glowing with quiet pride. She knelt and offered him the gourd. He drank deeply, and the crowd erupted with cheers. The women ululated, the men clapped, and children danced. The elders raised their voices, breaking kola nuts and pouring libations. One elder lifted his staff and declared, "Love is a seed planted by character, not by riches. May this union grow like the iroko tree, unshaken by storms." Palm wine flowed, kola nuts were shared, drums echoed, and Amarachi was led by Chike, her new husband, before the ancestors and the living. Her tears that once flowed from sorrow now flowed from joy. Indeed, love had triumphed. Odogwu's wrath. When the news reached Odogwu that Amarachi, the jewel he once scorned, had married his oldest servant, his fury was like fire in harmattan, fast, fierce, and destructive. His laughter in the bars ceased, his drinking companions avoided his gaze, for his face burned with rage. "How dare that boy take what was mine?" he thundered in his shop, scattering goods with his hands. A goat does not eat yam unless the owner is careless. Chike has bitten the hand that fed him. On a bustling market day, when traders called out prices and women bargained for tomatoes, Odogwu stormed into the market like a whirlwind. His broad shoulders pushed men aside as he marched toward Chike's small shop. His fists were clenched, his eyes red with anger. The whole row fell silent as he arrived. "Chike," he roared, his voice rising above the hum of the marketplace. "You betrayed me." Chike, standing behind his counter, looked up calmly. He bowed slightly, not in fear but in respect. His voice was steady. "Master, I did not steal. I only picked what you cast aside." Gasps rose among the onlookers. Traders abandoned their stalls to watch. Women shook their heads, muttering, "Obu oga ejiohutie." Today, there will be war. Odogwu's chest heaved. "You, my servant. You dare take my woman. You dare lift your eyes to where you once bowed." But Chike's gaze did not falter. His words carried the weight of truth. "Master, I served you faithfully for years. I carried your burdens, I protected your goods, I endured your anger. But Amarachi, she is no property, nowhere to be stored in your shop. You abandoned her with your own words. You laughed at her loyalty. You cannot curse another for cherishing what you despised." The market erupted with murmurs. Some nodded in agreement, Others shook their heads in disbelief. Odogwu advanced, his fist trembling. "You will pay, Chike. I will not be mocked in Onitsha main market." But Chike stood his ground, firm as an iroko. "I do not mock you, master. I only honor what you threw away. Amarachi deserves love, not waste. You had your chance, and you scorned it." The quarrel spread like dry leaves catching fire. Apprentices whispered to each other. Traders carried the story to every corner of the market. Women selling pepper abandoned their wares to watch. Soon, the matter reached the ears of the kinsmen, for such disputes could not be left to fester. By evening, elders summoned both men to sit before the council. The air was heavy with anticipation. The quarrel was no longer just about two men, but about pride, loyalty, and the question of who truly deserved honor. And so, the stage was set, Onitsha itself waiting to see whether wealth or character would triumph under the gaze of the kinsmen. Judgment of the elders. Under the shade of the great iroko tree, where generations had gathered to settle disputes, the elders assembled. Their grey hair shone in the fading sun, their walking sticks tapped the ground like drums of authority. Around them, villagers and traders formed a wide circle, whispering and waiting. The matter between Odogwu, the wealthy trader, and Chike, his former apprentice, was no longer private. It had become a test of truth, pride, and justice. Odogwu was called to speak first. He stepped forward, his red cap sitting proudly on his head, his chest thrust out like a cock in battle. His voice roared like thunder. "Fathers of the land," he began, "this boy betrayed me. He was my servant, eating from my pot, living under my shadow, yet he lifted his hand to take the woman that belonged to me. Is this not abomination? Is it right for a servant to rise against his master?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded at his words, others shook their heads slowly. Chike then stepped forward. Unlike Odogwu, he bowed deeply before the elders, his voice calm, steady, like a stream in the dry season. "Ndibi Oni," he said respectfully, "I betrayed no one. Amarachi was never bound to him by marriage or promise before witnesses. My master himself said with his own mouth that he had no interest in her. Can the hand that throws away a ripe fruit complain when another eats it? Is a woman a goat to be tied in the corner of a shop? Amarachi is a daughter of this land, not a property to be claimed and wasted." The elders nodded slowly, stroking their beards. Silence followed, then one elder, his voice hoarse with age, spoke. "He who refuses ripe palm fruit should not curse the one who drinks its oil." Another elder added, tapping his staff. "A man who mocks marriage should not curse the one who embraces it. Marriage is not for wealth alone, it is for those with character." A third elder, known for his wisdom, leaned forward. "Odogwu, you despise the gift given to you. You said with your own tongue that you were not ready. The ears of the market heard it. Even your apprentice heard it. What you despised, another has honored. Should the chicken that abandoned its egg complain when another hen hatches it?" Laughter rippled through the crowd at the elder's proverb, but Odogwu's face grew dark. His pride swelled, but the weight of truth pressed harder. He tried to speak again, but the eldest of the council raised his hand. "Enough," the old man declared. "This matter is clear. Chike has taken no man's wife. He has only honored a woman whom Odogwu shamed. Let it be known that Amarachi is Chike's rightful wife, and their union is blessed by the elders. Odogwu, you are wealthy, but wealth without wisdom is like yam without soup, empty and dry." The council struck their staffs on the ground in unison, sealing the judgment. Odogwu's shoulders slumped. His pride collapsed like a roof eaten by termites. He turned and walked away in shame, his wealth heavy in his hands but powerless to defend his arrogance. And so, under the iroko tree, truth triumphed over pride, and the people learned once more that character, not riches, builds a lasting legacy. The aftermath. Chike and Amarachi began their new life together quietly, without boasting or noise. Their marriage was not built on riches, but on respect, patience, and trust. In their little shop at Akanja Market, customers began to notice a difference. Chike's voice was calm, never deceptive. Amarachi's smile welcomed all, her hands arranging goods with neatness. When buyers came, they were not cheated. When apprentices erred, they were corrected with kindness. Word spread like harmattan fire, go to Chike's shop, he sells with truth. Soon, their trade blossomed. From selling few rolls of fabric, their stall expanded into 2, then 3. Apprentices from nearby shops admired how Chike treated his boys, no whips, no curses, only patient teaching. Amarachi, too, became like a mother in the market, advising young girls against reckless living, reminding them, beauty fades, but character is a crown that does not rust. At home, their union bore fruit. Amarachi gave birth to 2 sons and a daughter. Their compound echoed with children's laughter, with the smell of fresh soup and roasted yam. Chike would return from the market and carry his children high in his arms, his heart swelling with joy. Amarachi would watch, her heart thankful, knowing that the tears she once shed had been turned into rivers of peace. Meanwhile, Odogwu's path grew darker. His wealth, once overflowing like the river Niger, began to dry. Traders whispered that his reckless spending and arrogance had cursed his fortune. Apprentices abandoned him, seeking masters who treated them as sons, not slaves. Women who once sang his praises now mocked him behind his back. His shop, once the pride of Onitsha, became quiet, cobwebs creeping into corners where laughter and bustle once thrived. At night, Odogwu sat alone, staring into bottles of palm wine, his heart heavy. He remembered Amarachi's gentle smile, her patience, her prayers. But memory cannot bring back what pride has destroyed. Many said his downfall was not from lack of money, but from lack of wisdom. As years passed, Chike and Amarachi's home became an example in Onitsha. Elders told their children, if you want to see the reward of humility, look at Chike's house. When festivals came, their family was honored. When disputes arose, people sought Chike's counsel, for they knew he judged with fairness. In the evenings, under the moonlight, Amarachi would tell her children the story of her journey. She would say, my sons, my daughter, remember this, wealth is good, but it is like palm wine, sweet today, sour tomorrow. But character is like kola nut, bitter at first, yet it lasts, and it is shared in every gathering. The people of Onitsha carried the tale into memory, repeating it in markets and at firesides. A man who values character above wealth will never lack a crown. Thus, the story of Odogwu, Chike, and Amarachi lived on, not as gossip, but as wisdom, teaching generations that true riches are not counted in naira or in land, but in the love and respect a man builds within his home and community.